Hey, this is MJ, and in today's tutorial I'm going to be showing you how to make a quick and easy children's pullover. This is the mini version of our Athabasca Falls pullover. It's a great beginner sweater pattern. It's worked in the round from the top down, so there's no seaming required. And this beautiful striping is all created with the yarn that we're going to use. So the yarn is Mary Maxim Prism. It is a DK weight 100% acrylic yarn. So that's a lightweight number 3. And I'm showing the sweater here in rainbow, which is a really fun, beautiful color for infants and children. And the color that I'll be working with today is denim blues. So this pattern is beginner friendly, but you will still need to know how to crochet and know your basic crochet stitches. I will have my beginner tutorials linked in the description box, and you can also slow this video down by clicking on the gear icon, which is the settings button below the video. I'll be working with 2 crochet hook sizes, a 4mm and a 5mm crochet hook. And these are furl streamline hooks, and I'll have a link for the hooks in the description as well as the yarn. So to begin, we'll make a slip knot and put that on our crochet hook. And I'm starting out with that small hook for our ribbed collar. So this pattern is worked from the top down, and the collar is going to be worked in rows, and then we're going to join it. So let's begin with a chain of 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And in the second chain from the hook, so there's 1, 2, we're going to work a single crochet. And we'll work single crochets across the chain. Now we'll chain 1 and turn our work. So our chain 1 is not included as a stitch. You can see the chain is the little tiny stitch right here, and then here are our full stitches across. We're going to now be working in the back loops only to create the ribbed look. So the front loop is closest to me, and then the back loop to the back. And so when we crochet through this, we're going to go down through the center of the stitch, working through the back loop only, working a single crochet. Working single crochets across. You should have a total of 5 stitches. Now follow along on the blog or with the pattern for how many chains to start with for the size you're working on. And you can easily change the width of this collar by chaining more chains or fewer chains to alter that width. Chain 1 and turn, and then work single crochets through the back loop. If you're a beginner, it's a good idea to count each row to make sure you stay at 5 stitches. And you're going to continue working in rows. You will want to look at your pattern to see how many rows to make. And I'm working on the 0 to 3 month size, so I'm going to be working 52 rows. Now what you'll notice in the pattern, and this for beginners can sometimes be confusing, I will have the smallest size, which is our 0 to 3 month, and then in brackets I will have each additional size. So the pattern will tell you all of the sizes and at which position in the brackets that size falls. So you would have 0 to 3 month. The first number in the bracket would be 3 to 6 month, the next number 6 to 12 month, and so on. So it's a good idea to print your pattern, circle out all of your size numbers for the size you're working on, and then it just makes things a little bit easier as you're following along with the video, because the video will work for all sizes. You just need to follow the exact numbers that you see in the pattern for each additional size. So what we'll do is keep crocheting these rows, single crochet in the back loop only, until you have the number of rows needed. Now I've worked 4 rows, and as you examine this little piece I have, you can see that it squishes in almost like a little accordion. So each ridge that we have here is 2 rows, and this makes it really easy to count. I always flip my work here, so this is the right side, and I know that it's easy to count these ridges. So I'm just going to continue working my rows and now off camera, and once I have 52, I'll meet you up again. Okay, so I've worked a total of 52 rows. I'm going to chain 1, and as you can see, we have our full ridge right here. You can count by 2s to double check that you have the right number of rows, and then you're going to fold it together. So right side's facing, and we're going to slip stitch it together. So go through the back loop of your stitch, going over to that starting chain, okay, and work through each stitch. Chain 1. Now I'm going to flip so that the seam is to the inside. I'm going to change over to my larger hook just so this round isn't too tight. We're going to work a single crochet per row. So now remember, each ridge is 2 rows. So we're going to start out with a single crochet and then a single crochet. So now if you look at these here, you can see how it's a bit thicker section. So we're going to put 1 single crochet through there. And then we come to where you can just see it's just a loop. We're going to go through there as well. I'm also crocheting over my tail for a bit, just to save on some weaving. So I like to count as I go around. So it's 1 single crochet per row, so you should have a total of 52 single crochet stitches. Okay, so I've worked all the way around, and I'm just going to show you a little tip as well. So a newborn's head size is about 12 to 13 inches. So now you want to make sure that this is going to go over a newborn's head. So mine will stretch out to about 7, so that's about 14 inches. So it's going to stretch out to fit over a child's head that is around that size. Once you go over that, if their head size is 15, you probably want to go up to the next size in the pattern, or you could also work up your collar a little bit bigger by using a bigger hook, and that would help to fit over the child's head. But you don't want this too loose if you have a tiny baby you're making it for. So for a newborn, this should be a good size to fit over a normal newborn's head size. Okay, so once we're all the way around, I'm going to slip stitch to join. Find that first stitch and pull through. So now we're going to do our setup. So now we'll get working our pattern. So I'm going to start with a chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and I'm going to work a double crochet all in that same stitch. So you can see right here, this stitch, we're going to be working a double crochet. So now that this counts as our first V-stitch. So the chain 2 is a double, the third chain as our chain 1 of our V. So this will be one of our corners. Now we're going to work across the first sleeve, which is a total of 8 stitches. And I'm going to be working double crochet stitches. So 1, 2, okay, so there's 8 double crochets. In the next stitch, we're going to work a V stitch. So to work a V stitch, we're going to do a double crochet, chain 1, and in the same stitch, another double crochet. And that is our next corner. Next, we're going to work our front. And our front is going to be a total of 16 stitches. So work across 16 stitches in double crochet. And once you've worked across 16, we're going to do another V stitch. Double crochet, chain 1, and a double crochet. Now we'll work across our next sleeve, which is another 8 stitches. 8 double crochets. Okay, once you've worked across 8, in the next stitch, we'll work another V stitch. Double crochet, chain 1, double crochet. And now we'll be working the back, and that will be 16 stitches. So we have equal stitches, so our sleeves are both 8. We have 16 stitches for the front and 16 stitches for the back. And I'm going to continue across in double crochet stitches. Okay, I've worked across 16, and now I'm going to slip stitch in our starting V stitch to join. I like to do my join at these V stitches because it really does hide that join and makes it look so much better. Now, when you slip stitch, make sure to keep that slip stitch loose so that it looks the same as a stitch, because we will have to work into that as we work around. Think of it like this. So this V stitch has a double crochet here, which is a stitch, and it has a chain here, which is counted as a stitch. So now the top of that looks like a stitch with the slip stitch. As we increase each round, we need to include those V stitches from the previous round as stitches and therefore need to work into them. So as we come back around, we actually will need to work into this stitch as our final stitch. But I'll show you that when I get to it. So for the start of the next round, we're going to chain 3 and work a double crochet in the V. And every round will start this way. Now, as you can see the V from our previous round, we need to work into that stitch. So each section is going to increase by 2 stitches, the V on this side, the V on this side. So instead of 8 stitches, we're now working across 10. And I always suggest counting out these sections because it is really easy to lose a stitch and get your pattern off track. I also, in the PDF, make out a separate little chart for every single size, and this is going to show you the stitch count for each section of the yoke so that you can double check your rounds. So it will show you your front, your sleeve, your back, and your sleeve, and how many stitches should be in each of those sections. So this is going to really help you to not mess up. So let's work across now in double crochet and count as you go. You should have 10. Okay, so I've worked across 10, and then I'll work a V-stitch in the V-stitch. Double crochet, chain 1, double crochet. Now sometimes your V may cover over that first stitch. Make sure not to miss it, because this section will now be 18 stitches, going up from 16 to 18. And I'm to my next V, work a V stitch in the V stitch. And now we're to our next sleeve, which will work across a total of 10, work a V in the V, and then work across the back. And I'm going to meet you back up when we get to the end here to show you how to work into that slip stitch. Okay, so I've worked across 17 so far for the back. And then if you look here, because I kept that slip stitch loose, it almost looks like a stitch. It's right ready here for you to place that last stitch. So make sure you don't miss out on that so that your stitch count is correct. Now we'll slip stitch into our V, again, keeping it loose. And I can always tell that I've done it loose enough because I want it to look just, those loops to look just like a stitch. And then we'll chain 3, work a double crochet to complete our first V. And now what I love about this style of pattern is now we just keep repeating, we just keep going around working V's in our V stitches. Because you're working into the chain 1, which is not as included as a stitch, we're always going up by 2 stitches for each V. So our rounds go up by a total of 8. So 2, 4, 6, 8 stitches every round. And we just keep increasing the yoke until we get to the size that we're working on. So for our little newborn size, we're going to be increasing, let's see, until we have a total of 112 stitches in total, and a total of 8 rounds. So I'm going to work that up now off camera. If you need to reference this round again, you can just rewind and watch it again, but it's basically working the same. Important things to remember, just make sure to not miss that very first stitch. And now this round had 8, this one has 10, so this one will now be 12. This section was 16, 18, so then this time it will be 20. And just continue in this manner. Okay, so once you have your 8 rounds done, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, or however many rounds you need for the size you're working on, I'm going to chain 4. I'm going to skip over this sleeve section to the next V stitch, and I'm going to slip stitch, and then I'm going to fasten it off. Okay, and then I'm going to skip across the next section to the next V-stitch. This is going to get us set up for the next round. So find that V-stitch, we're going to slip stitch into it. Chain 4. Skip over this sleeve section to the next V, slip stitch into the V, and fasten off. Okay, and now we're going to come back to where we started. I'm going to make a slip knot, put it on the hook. There's 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm going to go in the 3rd chain. I'm going to slip stitch that. I'm just going to chain 1. And I'm going to work a double crochet in the same stitch. And the next chain. And then I'm going to start working around. So I'm not working into the chain 1 of the V, but I'm working into that next double. And I'm going to be working across in double crochet stitches. I'll meet you up at the next chain. Okay, so I'm coming up to the chain. This you can see is the double crochet of the V, so we need to work into that. And then we'll be working across the chain, so 4 chains. Make sure you get each one. One, 2, 3, and this is loose, but I just crochet over that and then weave back in the opposite direction to tighten it up. 4. And then you want to make sure you find the double crochet of that V here, and you'll be working into that stitch. And continue working around. Okay, so I'm working around, and here is our slip stitch for our, that accounts for our chain here. So we do need to work into that stitch, that slip stitch, to keep our stitch count correct. And then we need to work into those chains. One, 2. And now what we're going to do is work in a continuous round, so we won't be joining anymore. So I'm going to work a double crochet, and then I'm going to add a marker, and this is just going to make sure that I stay on track with my rounds. So I can add a stitch marker, and then you're just going to keep moving the stitch marker as you work around. So when I work back into this stitch on my next round, I'm just going to then place that marker in that new stitch and continue like this. So I want you to do a total of 8 rounds now for the body. And that should make a nice length for our little baby size. So I'm going to continue working my rounds off camera, and then when I have that complete, I'll show you how to finish off and then start your ribbed band. Okay, so I've been working around and I have stopped my double crochet before the marked stitch, and I have 1 stitch before the marker because I'm going to do a half double crochet in the stitch before the marker, and in the marked stitch I'm going to work a single crochet. Then I'm going to slip stitch into the next stitch. I'm going to change over to my smaller hook. I'm going to chain out 6. Work a single crochet in the second chain from the hook and in each chain. So you should have a total of 5. We're going to skip the stitch that we've slip stitched into and slip stitch into the next 2. Then I'm going to turn your work, skip the 2 slip stitches, and work single crochets through the back loop only. Chain 1. Going to turn and single crochet through the back loop only, back down. And you can see here this stitch has been slip stitched into, so we want to slip stitch to the next 2. And we're just going to repeat this. So you want the same number of rows worked around as you have stitches. So skip the 2 slip stitches, working single crochets through the back loop. So I'm going to work this join as you go band all the way around until I get back where I start, and then I'll meet you up again. Okay, so to join your bottom band, you're just going to fold your band pieces right sides facing. I'm going to chain 1, and then we're going to slip stitch together through each stitch. Can fasten it off. So I'm going to show you how to do the sleeve. I've already worked this one, and I'm going to try to match the colors up as close as I can. It's not going to be exact, but I am going to go with the blue, starting out with the blue so it does look similar. Depending on how much yarn you have left, this may be difficult to match. It's not required that you do this. If you just have enough yarn and you want to try to match up the colors, you can do that. But if you don't, it's going to look nice either way. When I was using the rainbow yarn, I wanted to make sure that it did blend with that rainbow on each sleeve. And I was able to do that with the rainbow as well. So what you want to do is have your sleeve facing you. So the right side is facing. Here were those 4 chains we made for the underarm. We're going to be skipping the first 2 and we'll be joining in to the 3rd. So I've just pulled off some of the ball to get me to the blue. And it's sometimes a good idea to leave a long enough tail if you need to do some sewing at the underarm. So I'm going to join in to the 3rd chain with a slip stitch. I'm going to chain 2. And then I'm going to work a double crochet into each stitch around. So we're going to do the chains first, so you'll have 2 chains to work into. Then you can see here, this was the V stitch. We're working into that 2nd double crochet of the V. Okay, where you see the full stitch, we've slip stitched into the chain 1 there. So we're going to work around. You're going to be working a total of 26, and then I'll meet you up for those last 2 chains to make our count a total of 28. Okay, so I've worked around 26, and you can see this was that V stitch. There's the slip stitch into the chain 1, and I've worked into that double crochet here. So now we just have our 2 chains left. (27) and 28. And now I'm going to show you how to do a reverse slip stitch join, and this is going to help make that join not quite as noticeable and keep it a little straighter. So what you're going to do is, I want you to make sure this yarn is to the front of your hook, not to the back of the hook when you do this. So make sure it's to the front. We're going to go back to front through the top of the stitch. Now I'm going to yarn under. So the yarn should be to this side. You're going to yarn under, and then you're going to twist away from you. So take that hook, twisting it away so that you now have those 2 loops on your hook, and you're just going to pull through, making your slip stitch. Now I'll chain 2. We need to start decreasing our sleeve to taper it, and I have a little trick for you as well that helps keep this join that we're doing under the arm, so you're not noticing as much. So we're always doing the decreases across the first 2 stitches, and to do a double crochet decrease, we're going to yarn over, go through, pulling up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, go through the next stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 3. And then we'll work around 1 in every stitch. So I've worked all the way around. You should have 27 stitches. And I'm going to reverse slip stitch to join. Make sure that you're not doing it in the chain 2. You want to go through the top of the stitch. So again, I'm making sure the yarn is to the front of my hook. I'm going back to front through the stitch. I'm going to yarn under, twisting the hook away so that I have 2 loops on the hook. Don't try to pull through right away or you're going to get stuck. And then you want to pull through. Chain 2, and this round we'll just work 1 in every stitch. So 1 double crochet per stitch around. Okay, I've worked all the way around. I'm going to reverse slip stitch to join. So this round again was at 27 stitches. chain 2, and we're going to do another decrease, and again it is across the first 2 stitches. So yarn over, and also that chain 2 is not included as a stitch, it's just getting us up to the height of the stitch. So we're going through the first stitch, pulling up a loop, yarning over, pulling through 2, yarn over, go through the next stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 3, and then work all the way around, reducing our stitch count to 26. Worked all the way around, I'm going to reverse slip stitch to join, chain 2, and this round will be worked with just 1 double crochet in every stitch. So this is our decrease pattern. We are alternating between a round of decrease and a round with no decrease. And because this is the tiny sleeve that we're working on, we only have 8 rounds in total. So I'm going to work up those 8 rounds, and then I'm going to meet you up for the next step, but just keep alternating these rows. Do a decrease and then do a round with no decreases. Okay, so I've worked down to a total of 24 stitches, and I have 8 rounds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We ended with a decrease round. I'm going to chain 1, and we're going to reduce this down a little bit more so the cuff's a little tighter. So I'm going to single crochet in the first 2, and then I'm going to do a single crochet decrease across the next 2. So go through the stitch, pull up a loop, go through the next stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 3 loops on the hook. So 1, 2, and then a decrease. Pull up a loop, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 3. So this will reduce this round by 6 stitches, bringing us down to a total of 18. So now we're going to want to change to our smaller hook. So we need a 4mm. So let me just slip stitch to join. You could have joined that up with the larger hook. Okay, so now what we're going to do is chain a total of 6. So this will be the length of your cuff. I'll work in the second chain from the hook, and each chain across, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now you'll want to look at your stitches. You're going to skip over the first stitch and slip stitch into the next 2. Then we're going to turn. You're going to skip those 2 slip stitches we just made and work single crochets in the back loop only. Chain 1 and turn, and single crochet through the back loop only, and keep count to make sure you're at the 5 stitches. Okay, so now again, look, I've slip stitched already into this one. We're going to slip stitch into the next two. So you'll have a row for every stitch. So a total of 18 rows. So I'm going to continue working this around, working my rows and then slip stitching it to the edge of the sleeve. Okay, so as we've worked around, you should be finishing with just one stitch to slip stitch into. And then work back up. So you're just skipping the one slip stitch. Chain one, and then I'm going to slip stitch the cuff together. You can fasten off and sew this together if you want. I am just going to fold it so that I have my right sides facing. And slip stitch through each stitch. So you need to come over to that starting chain. For a total of 5. And you can fasten that off and weave in your tail. Okay, so this is how it's going to look. Okay, so now what you want to do is just flip your sweater inside out and deal with all of your tails. Okay, so lots of different tails that we need to deal with now, but it's nice just to put the garment inside out so that you can see them all. So you should have 2 at the underarm, and you can see if there's some gapping, you can use your yarn needle to help kind of close any of that up. So I'm going to put the tail on my needle. Just go back and forth. Try not to distort the stitches too much, and you can always double check to the other side to make sure it looks okay. Okay, but I'm just weaving back and forth. And then you can trim that and just do that with both underarms. And any other tails, you just want to weave back. This one was crocheted over, so I just need to go back in that direction. You always just want to make sure that you're going one way and then back to make sure that that tail is secure. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you did, please give this video a thumbs up. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel and tap the bell to stay updated on all my new videos and tutorials. Make sure to check the description box below for all the links. Thanks so much, guys. Have an awesome day.